Bismillahi walhamdulillahi assalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers. Today inshallah we will continue our study of Surah As Saffaat, and we will try our best to cover from ayah number 62 until 122 inshallah. Before we start, I just want to wish you all Eid Mubarak, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all our ibadah, all our prayers and du'as and qiyams and fasting, and may He accept it and reward all of us. And Eid Mubarak to all of you and your loved ones as well. So let's start today's lesson. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أذلك خير نزلا أم شجرة الزقوم. Is that better as hospitality or the tree of Zaqqum? Now here, if you recall in the previous lesson when we were closing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the bounties and the rewards of people who will be entering Jannah and who will be received on the day of judgment, those people who will be moving to Jannah and how they will be discussing, and we went through the account of that. Now we will get to know about what will happen to the people who will enter hellfire. So there's a tree that is called Zaqqum. Now let's go through the description what it is. Inna ja'alnaha fitnatan liz-zalimin. Indeed, we have made it a trial for the wrongdoers. So all those people who were on the wrong path, this tree will be a trial. Sorry, just a second. Yes. So this tree will be a trial, and it will be a very tough thing. Trial here means that, it will be a very tough punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Innaha shajaratun takhruju fi aslil jahim. Indeed, it is a tree that grows in the bottom of the hellfire. So imagine a hellfire and there is a tree. The severity of that tree, it doesn't even burn. So it will grow within the bottom of the hellfire. And imagine the severity of the hellfire. طَلْعُهَا كَأَنَّهُ رُؤُوسُ الشَّيَاطِينَ. It's an emerging fruit as if it was the heads of the devils. So it's the worst type of a fruit and worst type of a plant that will be emerging. فَإِنَّهُمْ لَآكِلُونَ مِنْهَا فَمَالِئُونَ مِنْهَا الْبُطُونَ. And indeed, they will surely eat from it, and it will fill with their bellies. Imagine a tree growing within the base of a hellfire, which is the strongest of fires, and then that tree you have to eat. Those people who will be entering in the hellfire, this will be their food. So imagine what was shared with us related to the people who are in heaven, and the types of fruits and food that they will be given and the drinks that they'll be given. And here is a direct comparison of people who will enter hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from hellfire. Thumma inna lahum alayha lashawbam min hamim. Then indeed for them in it is a mixture of boiling water. So this will be their drink. It will be a hot boiling water, and it's a mixture. Just imagine for a second, I mean, that tree that is coming, that is being born in the base of the hellfire, and that will be provided to eat, and then the boiling water to drink. We cannot even imagine. I mean, even when we are sipping something hot, a soup or a tea, and we are like, oh, it's so hot and I cannot. And so this is completely unimaginable, which is why I always mention in my lessons that hellfire for us is not an option. We should continue to plead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He saves us from hellfire, and we should avoid all the haram things and try to follow the guidance, because this is much easier than the description that is in front of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from hellfire. Thumma inna marji'ahum la ilal jahim. Then indeed their return will be surely to the hellfire. They'll be thrown into the hellfire. So this is the welcoming drink, and this is the welcoming food for people who were the wrongdoers and they did not follow the guidance. So the action for us is pretty clear. We have seen this supplication and this dua multiple times. I just want to remind you guys, it's a very short dua. Allahumma ajirni minan nar. Oh Allah, protect me from hellfire. Try to recite it in the morning after Fajr. Try to recite it after Maghrib. This was the This is the sunnah of the Holy Prophet. He used to recite this. And it's a very, very small dua that can change our fate, because, duas are said that they are the only thing that can even change qadar or change fate as well. So please pray, Allahumma jinni minan nar, as much as you can, and try to remember it, memorize it, and then continue to recite it. Because only Allah SWT can protect us from hellfire, and we have seen this multiple times. But however, praying this dua and supplication is very, very important, but we have to correct our actions as well. We cannot just continue to do whatever we want in life and have a party and whatever, and just continuing to follow whatever we are doing, all the shameful things we continue to do, and then we say, oh, we are reciting this dua and this prayer, may Allah SWT protect me from hellfire. No, it doesn't work this way. We have to follow the guidance to the best of our ability, and then we have to pray to Allah SWT to protect us from hellfire. It cannot be like we continue our ways and then we leave it to the dua or supplication only. No. So we have to follow the guidance, do halal things, abstain from haram things, and understand our religion, try to adapt the religion to our lives in every aspect, and then continue to pray to Allah SWT to protect us from hellfire. Because even with the best of our effort, we do make mistakes. And shaitan is always whispering us. So we do make mistakes. So we need this application, but we need to have put in our best effort to be on the right path, inshallah. Allahumma jinni minan nar. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protect me from hellfire. Let's continue. Innahum alfaw aba'ahum dhalleen. Indeed, they found their fathers astray. Now, this is a very common argument that is brought by most of the people who are on the wrong path, which is, we have seen our forefathers. This is how my granddad used to do. This is how my father used to do. This has been a tradition. Oh, you want us to go against the tradition? Oh, you want us to leave the practice of our forefathers? This has been the argument. Innahum alfaw aba'ahum dhalleen. Indeed, they found their fathers straight. Fahum ala atharihim yuhra'un. So they hastened on their footsteps. They followed on their footsteps. Why? Because it was beneficial. Because they themselves were also enjoying. They liked, whatever their forefathers were doing, they thought that there is worldly benefit in it. And even though when a message is brought to them, when any messenger brings in the message to them, they understand the logic, but they don't want to follow it, because then it doesn't benefit. It requires some sacrifices. It requires something to leave in this world that is seen as a benefit in this world. So they hastened, meaning they just moved fast on their footsteps onto their forefathers, although they were wrong. وَلَقَدْ زَلَّ قَبْلَهُمْ أَكْثَرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And verily went astray before them most of the formal people. So most of the forefathers, or the people they used to recite that, so we are following our forefathers, we are following our father, this has been the tradition. They knew inside their heart it is wrong, and their forefathers were wrong, but because of the worldly benefit, they did not want to leave it. This is how it's been happening. This is how, oh, so you mean they were wrong? This is the biggest argument that was brought in. I want to clarify a point, and it is very, very important. And I need all of your attention on this one. Because we may also face it during our times. Now, the question is, this situation of the point that they were bringing, our forefathers, we have seen our forefathers. Is this point valid for us as well? Do we also hear it today? So, for example, you learn something new in the Quran, and you hear a hadith of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you try to go and you see this practice, for example, something happening in your family. It can be anything. Like, for example, it can be related to all the functions that are happening these days in the weddings, or the practice of dowry, or the practice of, or multiple bad things, or multiple negative things that are used as practice. Oh, we have seen this happening. Oh, our grandmother used to do it, grandfather used to do it, my father used to do it. Now, what happens is, if you go and say this within your family to the elders, to your father or your mother, and you mention that, I've just heard this or I've just read this, and maybe this doesn't seem right. We should try to stop it, try to stop doing it. Then the answer that you get back is, oh, so now you will tell us what to do. So you little boy who was just running in shorts a little while back, now you are going to teach us what to do. You will tell us. So my mother was wrong. Your grandfather is wrong. You get to hear all of this. So the point that I wanted to clarify, and it is very, very important, is being old or having experience doesn't mean people are on the right path. Please listen to me carefully. This is very, very important. Being old or elderly or having a lot of experience or being 80 years, 60 years, 70 years does not guarantee that the person, whatever they are doing, are right just because they are elders. Yes, we have to respect our elders. And yes, there is a lot of value of experience. But when it comes to religion and how to live your life and on guidance and what is the right path, what is the thing to do, what is the wrong thing to leave, what is halal, what is haram, how we should lead our lives, for us, the guidance will come from the Holy Quran, the Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is very, very important to understand. So if your elders are giving you advice and are guiding you that yes, and it is in line with the guidance, meaning the Holy Quran, the Hadith, and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then yes, we will follow it. We should follow it, and we have to abide by it. However, if there are practices that are happening that are not in line with the guidance, then you're not supposed to follow them. And you should respectfully guide even your elders. And we saw this in the story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, how he respectfully tried to pass this message to his father, who did not listen to him and eventually threatened him and everything. And we know that entire story. So we are not allowed to be disrespectful to our elders. And we have seen this previously as well, that we should not disrespect our parents. But respectfully, we should tell them the right thing. And, when you have the right knowledge, meaning how do you get the right knowledge? You have to have a reference. So for example, if you're talking about any hadith, then make sure that you look at it from Sahih Bukhari, Sahih al-Muslim, or an authentic source, and then you quote. So when you're talking to your parents and you say, I've heard this and this, then don't make it like I am right, you're wrong, all of this discussion. No. Just say that this is something that I found in Sahih Hadith. This is the right way, and I believe we should do it this way. And you have to be very respectful in the conversation, because sometimes elders get offended. So now we have to learn from, because that ego comes in. So this young person or this person will tell us, but your job is definitely to tell them and not to follow any practice. Because here in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning the evildoers used to say this to the prophets, that we have seen our forefathers doing this, or this has been the way, or this is the way it has always been. Now you have to apply the same situation to yourself, because Quran is for us for today. It's not just the stories of past, right? We have established this point multiple times in our lessons. So we have to apply the same situation to our lives that even we are also facing. A lot of the times, you will tell this to your aunt, to your uncle, to your father, to your mother, to your grandparent. Whenever you find something that, is not being done right in the family, you will get the same argument. Oh, so you will now tell us. You little boy will now tell us what to do and what not to do. You have become a better Muslim than us and all of these things. Which is why you have to talk to them in a calm manner, in a respectful manner. And you have to always use a reference. Find a reference, or ask an Islamic scholar in your mosque who can guide you, an imam in your mosque who can guide you with reference. And then you can take it to your father, your mother, your aunt, your uncle, your grandfather, and say, listen, this is what I have learned, and this is the right way. Unless they have a reference for their practice, or they can counter it with something authentic, then it is a different thing. But this is how you should approach them. Never take this as an argument that this is the way it has been. This is the way we have been following. You also have to follow in all of this. No, it doesn't work like this, as we are learning from Quran. I hope this point is clear. Moving forward. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا فِيهِمْ مُنذِرِينَ. And verily we sent among them warners. So a lot of messengers have come to different nations. فَانْظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُنذَرِينَ. Then see how was the end of those who were warned. So now we will go through some case studies. We will go through a story of Nuh alayhi salam, Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. We will go through briefly story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, Prophet Ilyas alayhi salam, Prophet Musa and Prophet Harun alayhi salam. Very quickly, we will go through all these case studies. So, and this is the way. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained to us the concept. Previously, in the previous lesson, we went through what will happen to the people who will go to Jannah and how they will be treated. Today, we opened our lesson by listening by the account of people who will go into hellfire and what they will be given to eat and drink. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala established the fact that, they used to say that this is how our forefathers used to do it, and they were just following the wrong way of their forefathers blindly. And now we will see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will share with us the case studies of certain prophets and messengers that he sent for people for guidance, but they did not listen to them, and what was their end. So let's go through it. Illa ibadallahil mukhlasin, except the slaves of Allah, the chosen ones. So all of this, the account that we went through of the hellfire, of course, it will be faced by those people who were on the wrong path, except the slaves of Allah, the chosen ones. This here is about now the messengers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent on us. And there are two types of learning that you find in prophets or messengers stories from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One is what we can learn from them as prophets and messengers, and the other is a warning of those people who did not follow them and what could be the end of us as well of not following them. So there are two different types of people that you account in every story, the prophet and the messenger who were warning them, and of course there's a lot of inspiration to learn from them. The other thing is that nation, how they responded, and if we follow their path, then what could be our end as well. So let's go through these. So these are the slaves and the chosen ones. The chosen ones because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses his messengers and his prophets. وَلَقَدْ نَادَانَا نُوحٌ فَلَنِعْمَ الْمُجِيبُونَ. And verily called us Nuh, and best, we are the best of responders. So after preaching for more than 900 years to his people, there were very few people who followed the message of Nuh alayhi salam, of La ilaha illallah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, don't worship anyone else. All the rest of the people that were there, majority of them did not follow. And he continued and he persisted in spreading the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for more than 900 years. Then eventually he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, and this is what is mentioned in the ayah, and verily called us Nuh, and we are the best of responders, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded him in the best of ways. And we know the story of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. For those of you who don't know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to build a big ship and bring in all the people who were his followers and his companions, and as well as a pair of each of the animals to protect them. All of them boarded the ship, and then the entire area all around them was covered in water. There was heavy rains, the sea water came in, and all of the wrongdoers and those who were not following Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, they all drowned and they all died. And then eventually the ship was obviously protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and only the righteous people were saved, and pair of each of the animals that were there in the area, they were also saved. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished the wrongdoers of the nation of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. It's just a crux of the story. We've discussed it in previous lessons as well. You can go through. Let's see the account in this surah. وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَأَهْلَهُ مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. And we saved him and his family from the great distress. And we know, so basically those members of the family who were following Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, however, we know that there was his son, one of his son who did not follow him, and he was drowned. Although there was wish of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam to save him as well and to bring him to the path, but until the end he did not, and he was drowned, and he was amongst those people who were punished as well. And we saved his family from the distress and a great distress. وَجَعَلْنَا ذُرِّيَّتَهُ humul baqeen, and we made his offspring amongst his offsprings amongst the survivors. They were his sons, three of his sons who became the survivors. They were with him, and eventually the population and the generation continued from them. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ, and we left for him among the later generations. Salamun ala Nuhin fil alameen. Peace be upon Nuh among the worlds. So among all the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that peace be upon Nuh. Inna kadhalika nadzil muhsinin. Indeed, we thus reward the good doers. Innahu min ibadina al-mu'minin. Indeed, he was of our believing slaves. He was one of the believing slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Summa aghraqna al-akharin. Then we drowned all the others. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Nuh alayhi salam, his companions, his offsprings, his family, and then all the rest of the people who were opposing him and who were not on the right path, all of them, they drowned. Now, there are certain lessons that I wanted to capture and remind us from the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam's story. Let's go through them quickly one by one. So there's a message or there's a lesson on resilience and patience. He preached for more than 900 years with minimal success. Only a few people followed him, but he kept trying. So he showed resilience, he showed will, and he showed persistence. And of course, he was patient, because a lot of the people used to make fun of him. Even when he was constructing the ship, we went through that story, they were just laughing and saying, oh, we don't see any water and there is no river and he's building a ship and all of that. And eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala poured down water from the sky and the seas flooded and everything. And we saw what happened. So here he faced a lot of opposition. A lot of people made fun of him, but he was patient because he believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was resilient, meaning he held and he continued on the mission without being demotivated or anything. And then only after more than 900 years is something that he asked for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. The other lesson that we get from the story of Nuh alayhi salam is we have to only do effort in our religion. Result, meaning guiding people, is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand. His objective or his task was to pass on the message as a messenger. And again, this is also coming as a reassurance to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because recall, who is sharing this revelation, who is sharing this Quran? He's sharing it in front of all the people in Makkah. And he was the one who was facing a lot of opposition. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reassuring this has already happened with the messengers and the prophets before the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. So for us, the lesson is that we have to continue our effort. We have to be the best Muslim. We have to pass on the message in the best possible way. We have to teach others. We have to take this message to others as well. However, the result is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand. This is the beauty of our religion. Unlike this world, the way when we are studying or when we are on jobs or when we are working or when we are doing business, whatever we are doing, the way this world runs is people are rewarded for results. What have you achieved? What have you delivered? What are your results? How much was sales? How much was this? How much was profit? And how much whatever, So there are these key performance indicators that are called KPIs. When you guys will start to work, inshallah, and when will you enter into and when you start to do jobs, this is how we are evaluated in this world based on results, right? So what was your result in school? How many A's did you get? What was your percentage? Based on that, you will get the admission. And then the next admission in university. Based on your qualification in the university, you will get a job. Similarly, this pattern continues. But in religion, it's different. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is rewarding us on effort. And this is very, very important concept to understand, because the way your life will be shaped up, you will be running after results. But in our religion, in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appreciating the effort. Why? Because the result is in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by the way, even in the world, when you're doing all these efforts in your studies, in your job, in your business, whatever, you can put in your best effort, but the result at the end is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those people who understand this concept are the ones who are most content in their lives. And they don't have issues like, depression and anxiety and this, because they know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is controlling all results. The earlier you understand this, the better it is for you. This means that you have to still put in your best effort. However, leave the results and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because results are in His hand. So anyways, we can only do effort in our religion. The result is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards us based on the effort, sincere, honest effort versus the outcome, right? Moving forward. We don't control the fate of anyone, including our kids. We can try our best to guide them. As we saw in the story of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, his own son, he did not follow, and then he was amongst those who were punished, and he eventually drowned. So even when we are taking care or doing the upbringing of our kids, we need to realize that we have to provide them the right context, we have to provide them the right messages, but guidance is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everybody is leading their own lives. We cannot guide anyone. Yes, we can share our messages. We can show them the right path. We can tell them, listen, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're not supposed to do. But eventually they have their own decisions to make. Because otherwise, if it was only on parents to guide their kids or on teachers or something, then everyone from Adam alayhi salam until now today would have been on the straight path. But this is not the case, right? So because everybody is leading their own lives, everybody is making their own decisions. So sometimes parents get over worried, and when you guys will grow up, and inshallah, when you get married and when you start up your own families and when you have your own kids, you'll realize this. Because sometimes you get over worried. Oh my God, my child, they're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. Your job is to pass on the message and guide them. Eventually, they will make up their own decisions, and eventually they will get their own result on their day of judgment, and they have to go into their own graves. So this is a very important concept as well to understand. And yes, it is covered in point number 4. Everyone is responsible for their own end. There is no guarantee for even Prophet's family or children. Yes, this is very important, because sometimes people say, oh, I am the son of this, or I know this, or my kid is a Hafiz, so Alhamdulillah, and we will go to Jannah, and we can have a party in this life. No. Everybody is responsible. Yes, there is reward, and there are hasanat of, making your kids huffaz or making them learn Quran and all of this. But you have to also follow the guidance. You cannot just rely on anyone. Even the Prophet's son, he could not be saved from the punishment. This is the extreme case that we can apply to ourselves as well and say, there is no guarantee of, because my father is so pious, my mother is so, religious, and she's praying for me, or my son, or my wife, or all of this. No. Everybody is working for their own sake. This is very, very important, and everyone will follow their own end. So I hope this point is clear. Okay. Moving forward. وَإِنَّ مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ. And indeed among his kind was surely Ibrahim. So similar to Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, who was the most obedient slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is also Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now let's go through his story. إِذْ جَاءَ رَبَّهُ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. When he came to his Lord with a sound heart, he had a pure heart, meaning he was purely dedicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isqala li abihi wa qawmihi madha ta'budun. Now coming the story, there are two parts of this story. The first one is related to how he went to his father and his nation not to follow these false gods that they had created by themselves. And the second part of the story is when he was asked to sacrifice by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his son Ismail, who was very young. So we'll go through these two parts of Prophet Ibrahim's story. The first one, when he said to his father and his people, what is it that you worship? These are gods of stones that you've created yourself. They cannot even help themselves. Why are you worshipping them? Ifkan alihatan dunallahi turidun. Is it falsehood gods other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you desire? Do you desire all these false gods? While the real God is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one who's protecting. He's the one who's providing. And you guys are following these false gods made out of stone. Why? Fama zannukum bi rabbil alameen. Then what do you think about the Lord of the worlds? That's the true Lord. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the Lord of the worlds. And you are wasting your time on these false gods that you have created yourself. Fanazara. nazaratan fin nujum. Then he glanced a glance at the stars. He looked at the sky. Faqala inni saqim. And then he said, indeed, I am sick. Now, this is a um, excuse he made, because as we went through our previous lessons in the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he wanted to stay back. They were going to a festival. He did not want to join them. He stayed back, and then he he broke all the false gods of stones, and he put the stick in the hand of the big god. And this is how, via intellect and logic, he wanted to outsmart those people. So when they returned and they asked, oh, what happened to our gods? And then they went to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he said, I don't know, ask the big one. He's the one holding the stick. And they said, he cannot do anything. He cannot even, move. How will he break all of these? And this was the point that he was trying to prove, Ibrahim alayhi salam, that even if he cannot move, then why are you worshipping him? And this is the entire point that he wanted to establish. And later on, because those people got agitated and they were so furious at this action that he broke their gods, that they started to build a big furnace, and they decided to throw him into fire. And Ibrahim alayhi salam went into the fire, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him. And he had such a strong belief. Imagine having a fire in front of you and then just being thrown into it. And he was so patient and resilient. He knew Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of protectors. So this is just a summary of the entire event. Faqala inni saqim. And he said, indeed, I am sick. So he wanted to stay back. Fatawallaw anhu mudbirin. So they turned away from him, departing. All of them left for the festival, and he was alone here, and where all the gods and everyone was. Faragha ila alihatihim faqala ala ta'kulun. Then he turned to their gods and said, do you not eat? You guys cannot eat, So this is a conversation of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Of course, he is outsmarting them, and then he's bringing in a very strong logic. Ma lakum la tantiqun. What is not for you that you do not speak? So he's just talking to the gods. And of course, they are made of stone. They cannot speak. They cannot eat or anything. Faragha alayhim zarabam bil yamin. Then he turned upon them, striking with the right hand, and start to break all of those gods. فَأَقْبَلُوا إِلَيْهِ يَزِفُّونَ. Then they advanced towards him hastening. So all of the people, when they saw the gods were broken, and they realized, and they knew that, Ibrahim is the one who was, alayhi salam, he was the one that he was against them, and they knew that maybe he is the one who has broken them. They went after him in a fast way. They were running after him. Qala ata'buduna ma tanhitun. He said, do you worship what you carve? So imagine, and then he brought in this logic that, the biggest one, he's holding the stick. He's the one who has broken them. And then they said, no, he cannot, because he cannot even move. And this is the point that he made. Do you worship what you carve? You have made them out of your stone and you're worshipping them. How can they be your gods? How can they be your creator? How can they provide food for you? How can they protect you? They cannot even protect their own selves, right? Wallahu khalaqakum wa ma ta'malun. While Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you and what you make. So he's trying to bring in a logical argument in front of them. قَالُوا ابْنُوا لَهُ بُنْيَانًا فَأَلْقُوهُ فِي الْجَحِيمِ. They said, build for him a structure, a big furnace of fire, and throw him into the blazing fire. How come? How dare he broke all our gods and destroyed them? So this is the punishment that they created for him. فَأَرَدُوا بِهِ كَيْدًا فَجَعَلْنَاهُمُ الْأَسْفِلِينَ. And they intended for him a plot, but we made them the lowest. So they can make their plots. They can create whatever they want. They can create a furnace. They can have a fire, whatever. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has his own plot. So when they threw him into the fire calmed down and cooled down, and nothing happened to Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَقَالَ إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينَ. And he said, indeed, I am going to my Lord. He will guide me. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was chill. He had no worry. He said, yes, Allah, even if you throw me into the fire, I will die. I will go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he'll guide me and he'll protect me. He was not even worried. Rabbi habli minas salihin. My Lord, grant me of the righteous. Then after this story, now we are moving to the second story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was saved from the fire. And later on, he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a son who is amongst the salihin, who is amongst the people who follow the right path and are on guidance. فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. So we gave him the glad tidings of a boy, of forbearing a boy. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ سَعْيَ قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ فَانْظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَى. Then when he reached the age of working age with him. Now, basically this story is about Ismail alayhi salam. So Allah SWT previously told that, Ibrahim alayhi salam prayed to have this righteous son, and he had also reached his old age, and his wife was also old age. However, for Allah SWT, nothing is impossible. So miraculously, Ismail alayhi salam was born. Now imagine you getting a son after praying to Allah SWT, and now he is becoming a bit older, and he is becoming young and strong at the age of working. Then when he reached the age of working with him, he said, "Oh my son, indeed I have seen a dream that I am sacrificing. So look what you see." قال يا بني قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك فانظر ماذا ترى. So he said that, I have seen a dream, and he went to his son. And now you can connect this ayah with the previous ayah where he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a son who will follow guidance, who would be amongst Salihin, right? So he told this dream that he saw that he's sacrificing. And of course, Prophet's dream are something that are also revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I sacrifice you. This is what he told his son. Qala. Now see the response of the son that he prayed for to be amongst Salihin. Qala ya abatif al ma tu'mar. He said, "Oh my father, do what you're commanded to do," without even hesitation. Can you imagine for us today, if we are given a son after praying, and he is now becoming a young age, working age, where he will be the most beneficial for us, and we love him. And of course, imagine a son, your own son, your own child. And even if you see a dream, people would first of all, in our times, if this would have happened, any normal person, they would have said, "Oh, no, it's a bad false dream. What are you doing?" No, it's from Shaitan. It's a whisper. It's wrong. And then even then, if you talk to us and you're like, "What? You're about to sacrifice me?" And the kid would scream and run away and all of that and crying. Imagine getting an injection for your kids. And you know what I'm talking about, all of you. But look at the conversation. Without even thinking, Ismail alayhi salam, he said, "Oh my father, do what you have been commanded. Satajiduni insha'Allahu minas sabirin. You will find me, if Allah wills, me amongst the patient ones." He didn't even say, "You will find me amongst the patient ones." No, he said, "If Allah wills." Because it's a it's a very tough ask. He was asked to be sacrificed, to be killed. And, it's not easy. And of course, as I told you, the example of an injection, although everybody knows that, yes, it's for the benefit, and it's a medicine and everything else, and you know how kids react, right? And here we're talking about sacrificing, taking the knife and, putting on the neck and sacrificing. So he said, "Indeed, you will find me, if Allah wills, if Allah gives me the power, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me the strength to go through this test, amongst the patient ones." فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَ وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ. Then when both of them had submitted, and he put him down upon his forehead. So both of them went to a place. Ibrahim alayhi salam asked him to lay down, and imagine, and his forehead was there, and he asked him to turn his face, because obviously Ibrahim alayhi salam could not see his son for bearing the pain and all of this. And then he put his knife on his neck. وَنَادَيْنَاهُ أَيْ يَا Ibrahim. And we called out to him that, "Oh Ibrahim." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called out at that point in time, قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ رُؤْيَا. Verily you have fulfilled the vision. You have fulfilled the command. إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Indeed, we reward the good doers. And then, so basically, while he was moving the knife, Ismail alayhi salam was replaced. So his son was replaced with a lamb, and he was sacrificed. And this is the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam, that we, all of the Muslims around the world, we fulfill it during Eid al-Adha, right? And this is the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept alive until the day of judgment. And that's what Muslims do during Eid al-Adha. or the big Eid after Hajj, and during Hajj as well. All the pilgrims do it, and all the Muslims around the world, we are all keeping this sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam alive. And this is what Allah SWT will mention in the next ayahs. Inna haza lahwal bala'ul mubin. Indeed, this is surely the clear trial. وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ azim. And we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. Right? So this was a big sacrifice, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaced it with a huge reward for Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. And we left for him amongst the later generations. So this is something, and we left for him among the later generations, meaning that now the later generations will continue to remember and practice this. And this is exactly the practice that I was mentioning a few seconds earlier on Eid al-Adha. So everyone who does that sacrifice, they remember the sacrifice of Ibrahim alayhi salam and the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam, of the great sacrifice, and the way they put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and his commandment first before the love of father and son, is something that is an example for all the mankind to follow until the day of judgment. Salamun ala Ibrahim, peace be upon Ibrahim alayhi salam. Kadhalika nadzil muhsinin, thus we reward the good doers. Innahu min ibadina al-mu'minin, indeed he was of our believing slaves. If you see the patterns of these two ayahs, earlier it came for Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, and now it's coming from Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And we know there were other multiple tests of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam as well that we went through in different lessons previously as well. Now, just capturing the story, the lessons from this story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And if you remember, there were two parts of the story. The first one, when he tried to convince his father and his nation to let go of the false gods and the gods made out of stone. And then the next part was with his son Ismail alayhi salam. Use of intelligence and logic to outsmart the enemies. This is a direct lesson for us. Using your intellect, using your logic to outsmart the enemies of Islam. This is something that we learned from Ibrahim alayhi salam. How he broke all the gods, false gods, and then he gave the stick to the tallest one. And then when they came, he said he is the one who must have broken. And they said, no, he cannot even move. And that's how he proved his point, that he cannot move. He's made out of stone. How can he protect you? How can he provide you? He cannot be your Lord. He cannot create you. So that's how he outsmarted his enemies. And then strong belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that he is the only protector. When he was being thrown into the fire, he had a very strong belief, firm belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect him and guide him, even when he was about to be thrown into the hellfire. And then immediately actioning every command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This you learned the best from Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam's story. Every time he was asked to do something, leave your wife and newly born child into the in a close place to Makkah. And at that point in time there was no city, nothing established, and he left them there with some provision. And later on, we know what happened to that place. Ab-e Zamzam came out, and that was again a very inspiring story of he fulfilled the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately. And then the other one that we went through related to Ismail alayhi salam, his young son, whom he had asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after a lot of prayers, and he saw a dream that he's sacrificing, and he asked his son, both of them submitted to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then they were about to action the command, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved and replaced Ismail alayhi salam with a lamb, and the entire story we went through. Keeping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above all. This is a very important lesson for us. We don't, sometimes, we find some commandments from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or Islam difficult, and we just step back and we say, no, this is something I cannot do. This is very difficult for me, or something like this. No. We see from the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, above all, his commandments above all, even before his family, newborn son, his wife, and then his son. He was about to sacrifice him with a knife. So this shows the importance he had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his commandments. This is really something inspiring for us. We have to show importance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his commandments. We have to show importance to Islam. What we do is, We live our lives, we do everything else in life, and then at the end of it, find time, quick 5 minutes for prayer or 2 minutes here and there, and and just get away with it. Okay, fine, give 2.5% zakat and just get over it. And again, go to the party and enjoy my life and pray to Allah, forgive me, and continue doing all the sins and pray to Allah for. No, it doesn't work like this, guys. We have to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and keep him above all, above our family. The love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be more than our family, more than anything else. This is very, very important and an inspiration that we get from Ibrahim alayhi salam. The last but not the least is that we have to believe that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us is only for our own benefit, regardless of how tough it initially seemed. We are not getting such tough tests or challenges from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are we getting? We are getting this amazing Quran. We are getting the hadith and the sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are being told to do things, halal things, fulfill all our desires by halal things. We are being told to refrain from haram things. And those are anyways bad for us in this world and in the hereafter. So we are being told to do things that are beneficial for us in the world and in the hereafter. We are not getting those challenges, the likes of which Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam got. Yet we are not following the guidance. So we have to understand whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking, He's our creator. He is sharing with us our user manual, how we should operate, what we should do, what we should not do. We need to simply follow it. And initially, some things may seem difficult. Some instructions of Islam are difficult for some people and some are difficult for some people. Someone can let go of riba or interest easily. Someone can not pray in Fajr, whatever. It may seem difficult, but you have to try, you have to practice, you have to put an effort, your best effort to follow the commandments and instructions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what we learned from Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. I hope this point is clear. Moving forward. وَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقَ نَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And we gave him glad tidings of Prophet Ishaq among the righteous people, who was also called Bani Israel. And we know the story of Prophet Ishaq alayhi salam. He was amongst the descendants of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَبَارَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ وَعَلَى إِسْحَاقَ. And we blessed him and on Ishaq. So Prophet Ishaq alayhi salam was also the son of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the second son was Prophet Ismail alayhi salam of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So he had two sons. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِهِمَا مُحْسِنٌ وَظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ مُبِينٌ. And of their offspring are good doers and unjust to himself, clear to himself. So they were, of course, and we know that Bani Israel were amongst the offspring of Ishaq alayhi salam, and another name of Prophet Ishaq was Bani Israel, and Bani Israel were all the descendants of Prophet Ishaq alayhi salam. وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. And verily we conferred favor upon Musa alayhi salam and Harun alayhi salam. And we went through the story of Firaun and how they challenged him and how they saved Bani Israel from the wrath of Firaun and all his chiefs and his army, and how they were oppressing them, and how Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enabled him with many miracles, and how he saved Bani Israel. وَنَجَّيْنَاهُمَا وَقَوْمَهُمَا مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. And we saved both of them and their people, meaning Bani Israel, from the great distress, because Firaun was at that point in time was unleashing great hardships on them and was very cruel to Bani Israel. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enabled Musa alayhi salam, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, and Prophet Harun alayhi salam to save them. وَنَصَرْنَاهُمْ فَكَانُوا هُمُ الْغَالِبِينَ. And we helped them, so they became the victors. And they did not have any chance, because of course Firaun and his army, they were almost the occupiers, and they were doing a lot of atrocities on Bani Israel. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enabled Musa alayhi salam with multiple miracles, and he was able to free them and make them victorious. وَآتَيْنَاهُمَا الْكِتَابَ الْمُسْتَبِينَ. And we gave both of them the clear book. So this is about Torah. Torah was handed over to Musa alayhi salam as a book of guidance. However, we know later on the Bani Israel, and they made some changes, and the sect of Jews was created, and then all of the changes that were made to Torah just for their own worldly benefits and how it was changed. وَهَدَيْنَاهُمَا الصِّرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ, and we guided both of them to the straight path. Both Musa alayhi salam and Harun alayhi salam were on the straight path from Allah SWT. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِمَا fil akhirin, and we left for both of them among the later generations, meaning we left their stories and as an inspiration for all the generations to come. And we know the story of Musa alayhi salam is the most talked about story in the Holy Quran. So there's lots of inspiration that we get from Prophet Musa alayhi salam and his brother Harun alayhi salam as well. Salamun ala Musa wa Harun, peace be upon Musa and Harun. Inna kadhalika nadzil muhsinin, indeed we thus reward the good doers. Again, the same pattern of 2-3 ayahs that are repeating after the story of every prophet. Innahuma min ibadina al-mu'minin, indeed both of them were of our believing slaves. Both of them were believing slaves. Alhamdulillah, we are finishing the lesson on time. We will quickly go through our key actions from this class. We went through the account at the start of our lesson of the description of the people who will be thrown into hellfire and what they will be given to eat and drink. So there is a tree, Zuqqum, which is growing at the base of hellfire, that will be given as a fruit to eat. And of course, it's being born into hellfire. Imagine, I mean, we cannot even imagine how it will be to eat that fruit. This is for the dwellers of hellfire, and they will be given boiling water to drink. Imagine sipping a tea, hot tea, and imagine sipping, trying to break even, when there's a hot pastry or a hot samosa or whatever you're trying to eat, and you're like, oh, I cannot, and you're trying to blow it. So imagine this coming as food and water, boiling water given as hellfire. So basically, it's not even an option. And this is what I say. So what we need to do is we need to ask Allah SWT for protection from hellfire. We need to continue to pray to him. And we went through this supplication, short dua, Allahumma ajirni minan nar. Oh Allah SWT, protect me from hellfire. And we have to follow the guidance. It cannot be that you continue to party in your life and then you say, oh Allah SWT, protect me from hellfire. And then you go and you start watching dirty things, and you go to mixed gatherings and parties, and intermingling within sexes like male, female, and all of this. No, it doesn't work this way. You have to follow the guidance to the best of your availability, to the best of your capability, and then you have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection from hellfire, because whatever we try, even our best, I mean, we end up making mistakes. So we have to continue praying this. Allahumma ajirni minan nar. Pray it after Fajr, pray it after Maghrib. And pray it with your heart, really, by feeling the details that have been shared with us related to hellfire and what the dwellers of hellfire will be given to eat and drink is something that should make us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from our heart to protect us from hellfire. The second action, and this is a situation, I mean, a lot of the times when the messengers used to bring message to their nations, they used to say, this is how our forefathers used to do. This is how our grandparents or these people used to do. You want us to change our practice now because they were benefiting from them. It was a worldly benefit. It was enjoyment. It was whatever, something that they were getting worldly, which is why they want to stick to it. And they don't want to follow. Even if the message of the messenger used to make sense and it was logical, they would not follow. How do we apply this situation today? Even today in many households, when you will try to share something that you may have learned in Quran or in Hadith or something, then your elders will tell you, oh, so you will tell us, huh? So you little kid will teach us what to do and not do. And your grandfather is wrong and your grandmother is wrong. And we are having this practice. And there can be multiple things that are happening in households these days that are not right. And there are lots of influences from, from other cultures as well that have become part of Muslims. However, they are not part of Muslim traditions. But when you will say, oh, I don't want to do it, or, we should not be doing it, then you will be frowned upon from your parents and your elders in the family or your aunts and your uncles. But the important thing is that you have to share this message with them respectfully. And you have to share it. The knowledge should be authentic. You should first do your research. Try to find a reference of a Sahih Hadith or a reference from the Quran. And then you mention that, we are not supposed to do it and we should not do it. And you should do it respectfully, right? But go in an authentic way when you want to correct things. But it is our job to do that. It's not like we can say, okay, fine. So I tried to convince my parents, but you have to try using references and try your best and be respectful. Okay, we did this discussion in detail during the class as well. We went through the stories of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam and Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And these are the key lessons that we captured during the class. Story of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam is all about resilience and patience. He continued to preach the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for more than 900 years. However, very few people started to follow him, and majority of them rejected, and they were making fun of him and they were opposing him. And at the end, he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded, and eventually he was asked to build a boat and put in all his key companions and his family members who were following him, as well as pairs of each of the animals. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought about a great flood from the sky. Water was pouring from the ground, water came in, and everybody else who was opposing Prophet Nuh alayhi salam and was on the wrong path, they were all drowned, including one of his sons as well. So this was the entire story. And the lesson that we learned from it is we can only do effort in religion. Result is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand. And we discussed it during the class in detail. We do not control the fate of anyone, including our own kids. Sometimes people get worried, oh, what is my kid doing and everything. No, you have to provide the message. Of course, you have to pray for your kids. You have to give them the environment. You have to give them the message. But eventually, they will make up their own decisions. They have to go they are going through their own tests during their lives, and they will eventually end up in their own graves. They have to face the consequences of their own decisions. Guidance is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand. Our job is to put in the effort, because everyone is responsible for their own end. There is not even a guarantee, for example, for Prophet's family. And this is the case with Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. His own son, who was not following him, he was also punished. So there's not a guarantee, oh, so I have a very pious wife, or I have a son or a daughter who has done hifz and he is a fast, so I'm guaranteed Jannah and I can do whatever I want. No, this is wrong. All of us have to try. Yes, you do get hasanat, you do get reward of having kids and putting in your effort to make your kids huffaz or hafiz and all of that. But eventually, you also have to follow the guidance. So everyone is responsible for their own end. And there is no guarantee for a pious person being related to you closely and you saying, I'll be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not punish me. This doesn't happen. Similarly, the story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, there are multiple lessons. His use of intelligence and logic to outsmart his enemies, the way when he destroyed all the false gods and he gave the stick to the one who was the tallest. When the people came and asked, he said, ask the big one, he has the stick. They said, but he cannot move. And he said, this is my point, that the false god you have created yourself cannot even move and protect himself or others around him. How can he protect you? How can he provide for you? It doesn't make sense. Follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is how he outsmarted his enemies, and he used logic and intelligence. And then he had a strong belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because after this incident, they burned a big furnace of fire, and they wanted to throw him in, and he was thrown in. But at that point in time, he had a strong belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that he is the one who's protecting. And eventually the fire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cooled it down, and nothing happened to Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then we see multiple examples coming from Ibrahim alayhi salam himself, when a commandment came to him, and when it was revealed by a dream, he immediately followed, immediately actioned every command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, including the toughest ones of leaving his wife and his young newborn son Ismail alayhi salam in a desert without a lot of provision. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a plan, and then the well of Zamzam was created, and the entire city of Makkah was established. And there now today we know how big it is and everything. And then another challenge that came to sacrifice his young son Ismail alayhi salam when he was at a young age. Both of them complied. Both of them showed patience and the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Point number 4, keeping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above all, even more than his beloved son, as was the example of Ismail alayhi salam, and sacrificing him. But of course, that was only a trial, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Ismail alayhi salam and replaced him with a lamb, so that he just wanted to test them, and both of them became steadfast, and both of them kept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above even their personal relationship. And believing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us is only for our own benefit, regardless of how tough it may initially seem. So this is a belief that we need to have. There are lots of instructions that are tough for one person, easy for another. Another thing can be tough for one person, and we need to understand that the first step may seem tough, but eventually it is for our betterment. As long as we are following the guidance, we should do the halal things and abstain ourselves from haram things. and try our best to follow the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it is tough, because it is for our betterment in this world as well as in the hereafter. We are not getting the sort of challenges that Ibrahim alayhi salam got. And even, I mean, I don't know if we got such challenges, what would our response be? But we are getting much easier guidance that helps us in this world as well as in the hereafter. So I hope the points are clear. Are there any comments, any questions before I close today's class? Okay. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Purity belongs to Allah and all praise be to Him. Purity belongs to you, O Allah, and all praise be to you. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship besides you. I beg forgiveness from you and I repent before you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers. Inshallah, I will see you guys next week, same time.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sir.